sitting down with me.
Oh, you're so welcome.
I came to know you because I met a friend of mine named Lou who said I had to talk to this person. And I don't know how Lou put you in touch with me. I don't really even know how that worked.
I don't remember.
Shook the tree.
I don't remember.
You fell out.
Yeah,
and it was
that's
it was really interesting. I get on the phone with you. You're like this Southern Belle person sounding on the phone. And I'm like, what's this person going to be like in person? This is like,
I'm so Southern.
Yeah, it's great. It's great though. I have a soft spot for it. I have this like joke I used to tell my friends when we were all still single and looking for wives. I'm like, if things get bleak up here in the north, get in the car and
drive south
and down.
A little taste of heaven.
Where they make wives.
A little taste of heaven.
I mean, I don't know.
That's true.
I think maybe maybe the world's getting smaller, and that's not so true. That's not so true anymore. But both of my uncles actually married Southern women, and it made an impression on me. I was like, maybe that's where you go to. But no, the guy was really good to me, and I found like this very Germanic agrarian girl who's basically like Little House on the Prairie. So they do make wives.
Good then.
They make wives up here too. Anyway.
Good.
But anyway, my first question for you is: after watching that, I'm going to be careful with how I describe it. Would it be a banquet of awareness, or what do you guys call them?
Well, I usually call it a benefit.
Benefit, okay.
So it's clear. I mean, I'll try to,
That's good.
It is a benefit, truly. God's
Yeah.
kingdom doesn't happen without people investing in it, whether it's financial or of themselves.
So why skirt it?
Yeah. We don't skirt it. It's a benefit.
Well, that's great, though. I mean, I think that's part of the genuineness of it, right? The cards on the table. But something that what struck me, it was so interesting, and I hope you don't mind me being so candid about this, but technologically, it was handled really well. Presentation, it was handled really well. And I'm in my mid-40s, and I was looking around, and I was like, this really would appeal to younger people. Like, that's my first gut. It was like, this ministry is aware of how to communicate in this generation. I've seen people go down in flames in regards to attempting to do that.
Yeah.
So I'm really saying something. So then I thought, and then I got to shake a lot of hands in the room, and I realized, well, this ministry has like this really strong trunk of the tree that came from this vision and then these relationships. So that began to make more sense to me, like why there's this generational gaggle. But I can't imagine it's not a goal to broaden the generational purview of the ministry. So what are the challenges there, if there even are any? Do you mind the question?
There are, and I'm really, it's very encouraging to me that you're saying, that it's the technology of it's appealing to younger people. Yeah. Because when you're so close to an organization like I am, I'm really close, and I see this really big gap between those who are really on board with us and those who I would like the baton to be passed to, which would be people that are younger.
I see, yeah.
I see a big gap there, and I live in that gap. I want the gap to close, and I want the people, these wonderful saints that are so faithful, and so I just cannot tell you the people that I've met. And my goal and my dream is that they will somehow allow people that are in their 60s or even younger, 40s, 50s, to catch this vision and pass the baton. And that's really the challenge. Not pass it, inevitably leaving it, but bring others alongside. And it's challenging.
What do you think
I'm
that
not
is?
really sure why.
Is that
I can't
all
figure it out, to be
missions
honest.
organization? Is it missions in general? Like, I'm just going to explore this thought with you.
I think there's something going on, missions in general in the U.S. I talk to a lot of churches around the country. I mean, like dozens and dozens every week. I'm on the phone, all from one coast to the other. And there is some lack of communication, lack of emphasis with churches. It's interesting. I talk to a lot of people that are in their 70s and 80s, and 90s. And they're like, well, we used to have missionaries come to the pulpit, and we used to do this, and now none of that's done. And
I agree with
so
that.
there is a little bit of a gap there.
I'm going to just presume something, being like I'm a Gen Xer, so I'd be like a hub generation. But I think, I just really believe this to be true. I think a a scourge of a worldly narcissism has crept into the church. Is really what I believe.
I agree.
In young people, the faith, if you enter into like thoughtful, eye contact filled conversations with them, and you're lucky to find them, in my opinion.
That's so true.
That's a little bit of a shot across the bow, but
that's so true.
It's the faith is really couched in a lot of like I terms. How do I feel about this? What does this do for me? You sit down with somebody like Lou at the Gaymans, and you get the exact opposite. They're uncomfortable when you're focusing on them.
Right.
They're very, very quick to put the onus on the Lord where it should be.
Yep.
If I can make a leap, I think there's a correlation in why missions focus has faltered, because that's the epitome of others.
Yes.
This is very. You're likely not going to get any of the glory, if there even should be such a thing in the kingdom. You're not going to get.
Yeah.
It's very other focused.
Well, you're not going to get anything out of it until you get on the other side of heaven. Where the reward is promised to be. So it's a selfless way of living that I don't know. I'm not a pastor, but I see it in some of the younger generation. And
so, do you think there's a touch point in what we're chasing down with why there's a disconnect? I mean, because it would make sense, right? Because, but the thing that does puzzle me though in this particular ministry's case is that by any number of, well, for reasons that I can't speak to so articulately because I'm only beginning to know them, but God's faithfulness through transition and you guys kind of having to move. This one, the fact that this one doesn't resonate a little more does puzzle me. It just does.
It puzzles me.
You know what I mean?
And I can't put my finger on it exactly.
Or maybe it's not fair to say that it doesn't resonate. Maybe it's fair to say that I don't know. I don't want to be presumptive about it. But that struck me as I wanted to ask you about that. I wanted to be like, what do you think? And even in the video you showed me, there were young people in that video overseas that were involved.
Yes.
So it's not a problem on that end.
Well, I think part of it, to be honest, I do think in America, we're so used to having pastors that have an education. We have multiple pastors within a congregation. We have all of these things that we're used to.
Oh, so the pH balance of education, biblical education is very high.
Yes.
Okay, maybe too high.
So it's hard for people, I think, to conceptualize a world where that doesn't exist.
That's a good point.
I mean, I don't think they understand. And when I go to meet with people, I try to, what if your pastor literally just loved Jesus and had a Bible? And that's the truth about a lot of our students.
Right.
They just love Jesus and have a Bible. Now, I want you to think about that. They've not been trained in any form. We have a class that teaches people how to baptize someone, how to conduct a wedding, how to conduct a funeral. We have one class that's what it is. It's just these little pastoral skills.
That is so cool, by the way.
That we take so,
Which, by the way, you would receive in seminary.
Right.
That's what you would receive.
They have no idea. What do you do? How do you conduct a funeral? I'm glad nobody asked me to conduct a funeral. I would be completely tongue-tied.
Because you've attended a million of them, but somebody else is holding the water.
So little things like that. Not to mention, just a theological, position where they need accountability, they need guidance. Because if you just, like, for example, in China, where millions of people are being saved, millions, the country is exploding. Well, now you have all these people that are going off into all these ideologies that are incorrect.
They need shepherded.
They need shepherding, and there aren't any. Well, in America, we don't have people getting saved and baptisms, We
have too many shepherds, maybe. I mean, let's just be honest with each other. We overeducate in the West.
You're right.
I really believe that
You're
to
right.
be true.
So,
in fact, some of the problems in the West are coming because we overeducate. And it's interesting to hear that in a different part of the world, the problem is that there's not enough. And I know you're right. There's this friend of mine. I can't tell you any details about him because he's in the Middle East, but he runs a seminary in the Middle East, and they're under constant attack, right? Bombings, threats on the life. You know what he always asks when he comes to the States? He asks these pastors that have like PhDs, he come over and train these young pastors. That's what he wants more than money, more than anything. And
you go.
That's just exactly what you're talking about.
There you go.
In the ministry, this ministry is an end around. Because you know what a bomb or a beheading can't stop? It's like an online class.
Right.
It's pretty beautiful.
That's right.
I wish I could maybe I'll even put you in touch with this guy because he'd probably love you. But
yeah, that's
anyway,
right. That's right.
That's powerful. And again, like seems, not to just keep harkening back, but seems like it would resonate so much in the mind of a young person because they already know about this. Half of them have their degrees online.
So the technological aspect they got, but it's the educational gap that they're harder to understand. Like, for example, I'll give you an example. We have 13 courses that can be accessed in English here. Like Mel Gaiman, he's 80, whatever he is. He takes classes as a registered student. I take classes as a registered student. And people can go online and look at classes on YouTube, take notes, follow the sequence of lectures, and come out with some wonderful information on different topics, whatever that is. There's one on pastoral counseling. There's several different, the book of Acts, there's 7 encounters with Jesus, cross-cultural communication, which, by the way, teaches, you walk away from that class understanding why churches are splitting, how some of those things could have been avoided, conflict resolution within church members, conflict resolution within staff at church, all these really intriguing things. And for the last 5 years, I've been involved with TVS, and I can't get anyone to take those classes. Now, that tells you something. To go on YouTube and watch them systematically, or to enroll as a student. And I've, created brochures and things. I've done everything because I thought if someone can see the class, it'll click. And I do believe it's that our resources we have so many resources.
There's death by options.
Many. That's just another resource. It's just another.
Wow, what a convicting
thing.
Well, the one thing I will tell you after this conversation, that cross-cultural class, I commit to you, I will enroll in that class because I can't think of something more relevant. But you're really on to something with so many resources.
So many resources.
This is an interesting anecdote. I'm talking to this young man, and I mentor a lot of young men, and this one young man is not willing to move through the seasons of life. He's not a boy anymore, and he doesn't want to become a man. He doesn't want to marry. He doesn't want to take on these responsibilities.
He just wants to stay.
He just wants to Peter Pan it.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm going to go a step further and just say I think that's a generational epidemic of this happening. But interestingly enough, if you talk to him, it's because in his mind, he's just like fenceless fields of options. And this idea that he's going to hunker down in one almost creates this he gets like super uncomfortable about the thought. But as a result of choosing nothing, he's actually just in a holding pattern. So that's kind of an interesting way of looking at what you just said.
It's true. It's very, very true. And that seems to be very common with people, I don't know. I can't totally understand it all. But I'm constantly looking for, Lord, show me the way to communicate this that Americans will see the value. And I usually give people a profile, what I know to be a profile of one of our students, and try to create a picture in their mind of this that they can actually imagine themselves. A typical student of ours is working a full-time job. They have 2 to 3 plus children at home. They are pastoring a church of 50 to 60 already.
But they value this so much.
They value this so much. They are in the middle of the night logging on, studying, or after their kids just ate dinner, or when the kids go to bed, or after their job, or at 4 a.m, or whatever, so hungry and so convicted that what they deliver on Sunday morning is right and true and theologically correct. They want to do their job and they want to do it well.
That's really moving, Peggy.
Or maybe they have, they have a couple. They have a couple in their congregation. They're on the brink of divorce. Well, I don't know about you, but I know some things. I've never been divorced, but I know some things that biblically I can tell people. Mm-hmm. But I don't know all the answers to how to save that marriage. Well, they know they don't either. So they go and they say, okay, Lord, there's my resource. I can take this and learn from people who do know, and they can teach me. Mm-hmm. So not only can I help this couple, but the next couple that comes and the next couple. Or a problem with teenagers. You know, we have courses on adolescent counseling that do the same thing. People that, the generation, we talk about communication issues. There's generational gaps.
Big time.
And so the resource is there. And for most of them, I don't know what they would do without this resource.
I don't know the convicting part of what you're saying, and I really think on a communicational level, I encourage you to chase this thread because I think there's something there. But to imagine... It's convicting. It's many levels of conviction. To imagine not having the resources is actually difficult for me because I grew up in the West.
Right.
So I've always had the resources. Right. And then had two parents that loved me, so that's another level of conviction because I always had the support. Right. And so on and so forth. But to imagine that has created an apathy in me that I can't even comprehend a world in which you are not just have resources, have so many that they bore you.
That's it.
That's an interesting...
That's the best way to say it.
That's an interesting, inversion.
That's the best way to say it.
And to think, what is the Lord going to do with us in the coming years? Because I do believe this, Peggy. I think the world is not going to be as it once was pretty soon. I just have a feeling about it. I don't know. I'm not saying anything specific. I'm saying something that that resonates in my spirit. He's going to take us through a time of refinement. I just feel it. Well, maybe on the other end of that, we're purged of this. Because you're right. To hear that men and women of the faith value human beings, which are the only things that's eternal, and Jesus proved that in his ministry. Mm-hmm. He cared about them, invested in them, and that's how he revolutionized the world. To think that they care about that so much that they'll find these little pockets of margin and then be so desperate for this resource. And on the other end of the pond, you would just be like, yeah, I know, everybody's got a book out, everybody's got a...
It's
so true.
It's so true. I have to tell you a story. I was in Kansas a couple of months ago, in Wichita, Kansas, visiting. Aren't you from Wichita?
Oh, I'm not. I'm actually from Central PA. I grew up here. Okay. Ohio. I spent a lot of time in Ohio. Yeah.
But anyway, I was in this restaurant literally randomly. The Holy Spirit guides in different ways. But I ended up. I was sitting by myself over in this table, and there was a long table of people that saw this woman sitting by herself, felt sorry for her. They were like,
"That's the Midwest, baby. Over here?" That's the Midwest.
I said, "Okay, are you sure?" And they're like, "Yeah." So I ended up across the table from this very dark man. He was very dark with snow white hair, short, next to a little dark lady, and I said, "Where are you from?" And he started telling me. So he is from India. And the region of India where they speak Tamil, if you're familiar with that. But we had just started an effort of translating a couple of courses into Tamil.
No way.
And this was on a Sunday, and the next day on Monday, I had a phone conference with our India translator to ask him some questions so we could do a virtual event using his testimony and his, where he's coming from as a translator. So this guy happens to be from this dialect of Tamil. And I'm talking to him. I said, well, while I have you here, at lunch, I said, can you tell me why these two courses were chosen by our translator, who's from the same region? So the first one was on a course we have called The Untroubled Heart, which deals with heart issues and addiction and reoccurring sin. So sin that just keeps, keeps coming back. So bitterness, things that keep resurfacing, deals a lot with addiction issues. And I said, why did our translator choose that particular course? He could have chosen from 200, anything. Why that one? Could have been Genesis, could have been whatever. Right. He said, I'll tell you. I said, what? And he said, well, I run a rehab center in India. I have for the last 15 years. I said, really? He's a Christian man. I said, really? He said, yeah. He said, addiction, every other person is addicted to I said, to what? And he said, mainly alcohol. And I said, really? I didn't know that.
I didn't know that.
He said, addiction is everywhere.
Rampant.
Everyone is addicted, every other person. And I said, why? Do you know why it's such a big problem? And he said, oh, yeah. And I said, why? And he said, they're bored. They're bored. I said, really? He said, there's no movie theaters. There's no athletics. There's nothing to do. So they just drink.
Just check out and
just drink.
Feel away.
Mm-hmm. So he said that, and so we talked about that a bit. And I said, well, the second course that he chose is marriage counseling, or what was it? Yeah, marriage counseling. And I said, why? Of all the courses in the 200, they could have chosen to be translated into their language. He said, oh, I'll tell you why. And I said, why? And he said, because everyone is beating their wife. Everyone. And which we know that in India, that women are
right, the class system.
And I said, really? And he said, oh, yeah. And I said, well, what do the pastors think or do? Or, how do they address that problem? He said, it's the pastors that are doing it, primarily. The Christian pastors.
It's so steeped in the culture.
It's so steeped in the culture.
That it's paramount over what they read in the gospel.
And he said to me, how fast can you get those 2 courses? When are they coming? He said, I cannot tell you. We have no one that is addressing these 2 problems. And he said, and I run a rehab center. And I said, well, what is your success rate in the rehab center? He said, well, maybe 40%, 35 to 40%. He said, we need to get down to the core of why is this recurring? Why is it just going on and on and on? So
that's a cool story.
It's an amazing. So
it's a really amazing story.
Our classes are chosen by indigenous people
that tell you the need.
Isn't that something? That tell you the need.
It's really cool.
And then it's like taking medicine, for this specific problem. Which kind of cuts out all the.
Makes me think of something. In America, you throw a rock, you hit a church, and if you go into that church, you're gonna probably meet a bunch of Christians that are gonna tell you, what is our heart? Our heart's for the community. This is something that all these churches say, and I believe that their heart really is for the community. But a pattern I've noticed is very, very few times have I interacted with a church that goes to the community that they want to impact, and ask them, what are you dealing with? And the reason I mention that is it's just not something that they do. And I'm not going to presume, I don't know why they don't do it. I'm new to ministry. It's only 6, but it's just something I've noticed. They don't ask the question. So they want to impact the community. They have no idea how to impact the community. It's interesting. This sounds like it's the opposite of that. There's like an actual need that is coming organically from that cultural, that's a cool thought. And I think that I always, everything in my apprenticeship of Jesus is laid over the way he does stuff. And he does that. He goes there, and this person's dealing with this kind of very real part of carrying life, which who can't relate to that? He doesn't skip over it. He addresses it, speaks to it, brings value and identity back into it, and then says that this person's a child of God. They shouldn't be hollowing themselves out like this. And that's just a really beautiful model, and it lines up with what you just said. It's really cool. Yeah, the ministry is exciting, and there's a lot of, I'll tell you what you got going for you, in my opinion.
Okay. I need the encouragement going.
The kind of person that's been supporting this. So I'm just going to use, I'm only going to speak of what I know, the society that I keep, my personal friends and stuff. The ones that I think a lot of are all, not all, but a lot of them turn out they're interested in this ministry. That's made an impact on me. Like everybody can do this. Good. Like you have a circle of friends, and then you have these friends that you're really impressed with, and they're really they're representing Jesus well, and they're well rounded, and you enjoy their company, and you want to be around them. All I'm trying to say is a high percentage of my society that those people are involved in this ministry. So that has an impact on me, like what, they're wise, and the fruits of the Spirit are on their lives, and they made an impact on me personally, and they happen to think this ministry is cool. And for what it's worth.
Yeah. And, I came into it, I was introduced just like everybody else, Well, not I don't have the history, but I was introduced just like you are.
Yeah, the same way.
Just a few years ago, I'm like, what? I didn't understand. And it's really amazing. It's amazing to see an avenue.
Yeah, it is.
That is just so effective. And for such a small amount of resource,
right,
making such a big difference.
Yes.
And the fact that the resource goes on forever is really interesting.
I like that.
Once a course has been selected, like the courses in Tamil that I was telling you about, once those courses are selected, now you've got to understand that the problem in that community has been there for ages. This alcoholism and the treatment of women has been there forever.
Yes, systematic.
So now we have, once those 2 courses that are now in English are translated into Tamil, and they'll later be translated into Hindi, that resource is there from now on.
Yeah, that's really cool.
And just keeps on being shown. So we take it over here, we take it over there. People can log on to YouTube and watch it.
It's really cool.
Did you know that India's there has more YouTube watchers than any country?
I did know that.
I don't know if it's before or after America. I think it's before America.
The only reason I know that is a couple years ago, 2 years ago, there was this big fuss made that the number one subscribed YouTuber, this guy's name was PewDiePie or something. Just this American video gamer guy.
Yeah.
He was about to get surpassed by this Indian
outlet right.
because there's so much viewership in India.
Yeah, there's so much viewership. Yeah. So you can just imagine how many people are going to be impacted by those 2 things.
Right.
They're going to learn. How does
cool.
God see women and, getting beyond this, that there's life beyond this addiction and this thing that you're so steeped in. It's in the culture so deeply. So it's it's almost pennies on the dollar.
It really is.
Honestly.
It really is.
It's a deal.
And you're putting your focus on the right stuff in my mind.
Yeah.
So not only is that video there forever, that video is there as a resource to multiply, but education, the ideas are go into a human being, change a human being, and are eternal. Yeah. So it's an eternal investment in a human being, an eternal investment in a person that maybe likely is going to preach to or teach to more human beings.
Right.
It's very domino-y in its.
Yes.
It's very it's got a cool.
Yeah, it's multiplying.
It's really cool. I've been real interested in it. It's blessed my life. Vitali is a guy that I know vision. I have vision. God's given me that. And I know another one when I see one. And he is a visionary. And it was really, really cool to 3-dimensionalize, kind of just, I just got to see that a little bit in a broader lens at that charity event that I went to. And that was really cool for me to see him. And I think that also is a very impactful thing when you see somebody like that leading, and you see that there's a lot of money where the mouth is. It's pretty cool. And in a time of cynicism, when leaders are failing you and institutions are failing, I'm just speaking of my own heart and the heart of people around me. There's a lot of hope being lost in structures and institutions right now, and a lot of people just the bloom's coming off the rose, if you will, and for good reason. I mean, there's all these pastors that are falling publicly, and there's no sense in acting like it's not happening. It is happening, but to see the opposite of that, to see somebody that people are genuinely, and he just presents himself like a.
He's a regular guy.
There's no there's no
guy.
secret sauce here. I'm just trying to be obedient like you're trying to be obedient. But God needs leaders, and he needs visionaries, and I saw in him that. So that was cool too.
Yeah, it's been really a privilege to work underneath his leadership. I was never in ministry before. I always wanted to be in ministry. And I don't have a ministry degree. I don't have any of those things.
I don't either, Peggy.
It's really interesting. God just says, are you willing?
Yeah.
It's
if you're willing. A lot of the private sector stuff crosses over. Me and you have that in common.
I have a lot of private sector stuff that I've
But it totally crosses over into ministry. In fact,
it does.
I've discovered ministry starving for those skills. So there's a lot of people in the room that went to fill in the blank theological seminary. But there's some skills that you need to be a human being that are out there.
It's been for the first year or two, I felt very inferior.
Right.
And I was like, oh dear, I'm just not, And I'm like, okay, Jesus, if you said so, I'm here,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I just keep plugging forth, and moving every day. But working underneath him has been very interesting. I've never worked under someone like this. And the way he views me is this. God picked you, and I trust you. Go make as many mistakes as you need to make. Figure it out, because God put you there. And I'm like, wait a minute, tell me what to do. And he's like, no, God put you there.
That's a good leader.
And that's a good leader.
That's a good leader.
And I've never been under a leader like that before.
Yeah.
That is that. I remember the first year I ever did an event. I had never done anything like that. It was in 2019. Ever in my life. So I started trying to find somebody to MC. So
right.
I'm thinking, I'm scratching my head. I'm like, there's this person, that person. And Vitaly says, it's you. I said, no. No. I said, we need to pray. I'll never forget. He said, sometime we pray too much. It's you. I was like,
that's a great answer.
I don't think I can do that. And lo and behold,
you are good at it. You are good
I had
at
no
it.
earthly idea. Thank you.
Yeah, no, and I mean it. You are good at it.
It's
interesting at those events. I'm just going to share something with you because I'm also I'm a musician, and so I get brought into at a calendar year. I might do like 15 of these or something.
Yeah.
1 second, I'm going to turn this back on. I might do 15 of these. And like for example, I play on this duet with a woman that is on the worship team here, and we get asked to do like Habitat for Humanity, Cross, stuff like
She's
that.
the one that does the more harmonizing,
Yeah,
with a higher voice.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, we it's just like a smaller little. We can just go do. So we'd be over in the corner doing like cocktail hour or something, and everybody's.
Yeah.
But here's the reason I mention it. All the time, her and I are just at the mystery table, if you will.
Yeah.
And I'm just observing it, sort of like I don't have as much skin into the game. I don't know any of these people. I don't have a relationship with them.
Right.
I'm observing like the way it's done, and they put a lot of time into like running the venue and stuff. But the person that they have communicating is the wrong person. And I would argue this happens 75% of the time. Just not a bad person. The reason that they're communicating is there's something else that's really important to the ministry that they do, that they bring to the table. Right. So the assumption is, I know this is all inside baseball, the assumption is that this should be the person.
That has to be the one.
But it's a skill set.
True.
See, it's a skill set. It's just a thing that you have or you don't have. The kingdom of God should work more like that. I think good leaders see that. Like, yeah, I'm the leader, but you're better at this thing, like by a mile. Like you should be doing this thing. And this idea that I'm going to micromanage that thing is foolish because that wouldn't even be the right call either. Really cool.
I think that was part of my frustration in if I was frustrated, in corporate America, is that I really did not need to be micromanaged.
Right.
By personality.
Right. I relate
and it
to you.
frustrated me. I'm like,
yeah, we're go-getters. I'm with
tell
you.
Me what to do.
Yeah.
I already know what to do.
The person telling you what to do is not the right person to even be telling you what to do, even if there was such thing.
And you kind of knew that, and you're battling that every day, going, well, don't tell me any, I already know. But anyway, and I have full leeway, and so I can be creative, and I'm convinced, as I know you are, that God is all into creativity.
Yeah.
He is creative. He is creative in every way, in everything that's said, everything that's done, everything. And if you lose sight of that and you don't have that anymore, I think that, especially now, I don't know if God's pouring out more creativity than before, but I think that people are responding to creative ways of being communicated with.
That's cool.
I really do.
I think that I like what you're saying. Maybe he is pouring out more for his purposes.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. And it's interesting, too, because I've never understood why the church didn't lead the way in this. Like when I was a young boy, it was a long time before I really became edified by sacred music because it wasn't done very well a lot of times. There was just a lot of things that weren't done very well. And I always wondered secretly, I was like, how are the children of God not leading the way on this? And I still don't know the answer to that. But it's getting better. And all that stuff's getting better. But the other thing that I would say is Jesus does the same thing, right? He puts together this hodgepodge of like characters that are just like pieces of work, essentially. But he sees something in them.
Yeah, right.
And he's like seeing the long game. And then eventually, through the Spirit, he's like, now you have to do it. Go do it. It's a really cool thought.
It truly is. And so I've been married to the same man for 37 years now. We're fixing to have our anniversary. But
by the way, bravo on that.
Thank you.
Not a small accomplishment.
Not easy anymore.
Yeah, not a small accomplishment.
No. But, we always tease him because my cup is always half empty. And he's like, and his is always half full.
Is that right?
Yeah. And so I always tell him, God made people like me. Because for one thing, I'm the splash of water on, calm you down just a second. I said, but I also, I always I'm aware of what's there, but I always know what needs to be done. I always know, I instinctively.
There's a blessing and a curse in that, right?
It is.
Yeah.
But I know, okay, we're that far. We're almost there, but we're not quite full.
Torture you a little bit?
A little bit.
And then he's the optimism. He's the sunshine.
Yeah. I bring him back down the earth. Well, hold on a second. But,
that's really funny.
It works. It works for us.
Yeah.
And we have fun.
So you guys are like a little yin-yang in that way? So I have that too. Yeah, really? I'm real external. I'm, like, for example, this venue's good for me because I think, which is hard for introverts, but I'm thinking as I'm communicating to you.
Yeah.
The introverts are like, if you said it, must be in stone. But I'm actually, processing with you. If you say something that changes my mind, I'm like, but the introvert, who's my wife, she mauls for like 2-3 days before she finally composes a sentence and releases it. And I'm like, how do you survive like that? But yeah, there's that counterbalance. I'm served really well by it too. Peggy, what a delight. I don't know if there's something. Oh, I do want to do something. I want to get some boilerplate done. So the ministry called, I'm just going to let you say it since I got another camera on you.
Okay.
Actually, you know what?
Okay.
So I'm just going to, what I mean by boilerplate, I should have elaborated. I mean, I want to tell people about the ministry, and I'd like you to tell them about it. So if they're interested in this, they'd like to get involved in this. Okay, there's like a couple tiers. Okay. You're just interested in it. The YouTube channel is what? The website is what?
Okay. Yeah, I know how to do that.
Okay. Just speak to me about that. If we struck your interest in this conversation.
Yeah.
The YouTube channel.
I would go to TVSeminaryUSA.com.
Okay.
Which is our USA website.
Yep.
At the bottom of each page is our YouTube link, and you can go there. But I encourage people to go to that website
because the mothership. Mm-hmm. It's everything.
Look around. You can look at some of our work overseas and see what we're doing there. There is a small page on our founding and how that came to be. There's a giving opportunity there. There's a donation opportunity there. But mostly, I would encourage people to go on the bottom of every page. You can sign up for our newsletter down there. You can also go to YouTube and access our courses. I think that's probably
the best.
And I would start with 7 Encounters with Jesus.
7
Encounters with Jesus. Ronnie Stevens, who is from Texas, actually, Dallas Theological Seminary. And he is one of the most profound seminary speakers professors I have ever heard.
Okay.
He's a little emotional, which I kind of like. He's a little emotional, but I can't explain it. You have to experience him for yourself.
That's a good sales pitch.
Experience him for yourself.
I'm going to take you
at
up
our
on
event the other day, a lady came from California, and she came all the way to Hershey to attend our event.
Is that right?
And she had told me about a year and a half ago, she said, Ronnie Stevens is part of the main reason I give to this ministry, because he is that, our professors are handpicked. They're handpicked. They're the best of the best.
Wow.
And there's a reason when you see him in action, you'll understand. And that particular course, 7 Encounters with Jesus, will change your life. And I'll just give you a little disclaimer. It's about people in the Bible that knew Jesus personally, and how knowing him and walking with Jesus, they were shown from the very beginning this man's going to cost you something. Starting with Mary and Joseph, all the way through people that knew Jesus and how it was laid out from the beginning, it's going to cost you something to know this man and to be personal with him. And it'll change your life. It'll change your walk with the Lord.
Poor does
So
it.
I would start there.
That's great.
My recommendation.
That's great. And then one more thing, because there are people in ministry, and so if you're interested, if a church is interested in talking to you or something, you're just same suggestion. Go to the website.
Go to the website.
Get in touch with you, Peggy Valentine. Killer name, by the way.
Oh, thank you,
Peggy Valentine. Don't forget it.
I told everybody I married my husband because of his last name. So pretty.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Peggy Valentine, packs a punch. Yeah, so that would be where they'd find you, though, if they're interested in
there's a contact.
some sort of.
And I'm pretty much a one-person show. My husband actually works underneath me now, which is an interesting dynamic. But I will answer most of every email. I answer personally. People call the number. I will be there and answer the phone in Texas.
Pretty awesome.
Throw my accent on it.
Yep. If you just need a nice person to talk to during the day.
we'll just chit-chat.
Free counseling. Peggy, you're delightful. Thank you. Thanks for sitting down.
Thank you.
All right.
For having me.